Hands up now. Don't take another step, bro. Get back now.
When an off-duty Delta Force commander, Marcus Hale, is stopped and humiliated by National Guard soldiers for the crime of jogging home while black, a chain of events explodes into a national reckoning, from the tense roadside stop where soldiers abused their power, to Marcus's brutal arrest and stripping of dignity inside a holding cell. Every chapter peels back the layers of systemic racism and arrogance. As protests erupt outside and federal agents intervene, Marcus confronts the corrupt Colonel Danvers in a fiery closed-door clash that exposes cowardice behind the uniform. The truth spreads, walls of silence crack, and the Colonel faces a devastating downfall before the eyes of the nation. In the end, Marcus finds poetic justice not in revenge, but in reclaiming his dignity and refusing to stay silent, turning his humiliation into a rallying cry for justice, resistance, and change. Marcus Hayes slowed his jog as the late afternoon sun dipped behind the rooftops of his quiet suburban street. Sweat beaded on his forehead, dripping down onto the plain gray hoodie he wore. His steps softened as he neared the corner store, a familiar pit stop for a bottle of water before heading home. Inside, the cashier, a young kid barely out of high school, nodded politely. Marcus returned the gesture, bought his water, and stepped back into the fading light. He adjusted his earbuds, ready to finish the last mile. That's when the hum of a military truck broke the calm. Two National Guard soldiers, rifles slung casually across their chests, slowed their vehicle as they passed. Their eyes lingered on Marcus longer than they should have. "Hey," one said, leaning out the window. "Yo, what's this guy doing?" Marcus ignored it, twisting the cap off his water. The truck pulled over. Boots hit asphalt. "Excuse me, sir." The taller one, a private by his insignia, stepped forward. "Mind telling us what you're doing around here?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Running, buying water, same thing I do every Sunday." The private's partner smirked. "Funny, don't see too many joggers in hoodies hanging around stores." Marcus sipped his water, measuring his tone. "I live 3 blocks that way. Do you patrol everyone who buys Gatorade, or just me?" The smirk faded into something colder. "Just routine, sir." "You got some ID?" Marcus sighed, sliding his military ID from his pocket. "Here." Satisfied, the private glanced at it, frowning. This don't look right. It's real." Marcus's voice was flat. "You can scan it." The second soldier leaned closer, peering at the card. "Hayes, Marcus, military, special operations." "Yeah, okay. Anybody can print one of these online." Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's a federal ID. Careful what you accuse me of." The taller one shifted, squaring his stance. "Why you talking like that? Nobody's accusing you. Unless you've got something to hide." "I don't." Marcus capped his bottle. "Now, if you're done, I'd like to finish my run." The private's smirk returned. "Not so fast, hoodie man." Marcus's eyes flicked to the street. A couple walking their dog had stopped. A teenager across the road pulled out a phone. Recording. "Look," Marcus said, steady but firm. "I don't want trouble, but this feels a lot less like routine and a lot more like harassment." The soldier snapped. "You better watch your mouth." The second one chuckled. "What, you think you're some kind of officer?" Marcus's silence was heavy. "Answer him." The soldier pressed. Marcus finally spoke, voice low. "I've been an officer longer than you've worn that uniform." The laughter stopped. The taller one stepped closer, hand brushing his rifle strap. "You trying to be smart with us?" Marcus held his ground. "No, I'm trying to get home." The crowd watching grew, phones tilted upward, capturing every second. The second soldier sneered. "Nah, something's off. He's acting nervous. Let's search him." Marcus raised both hands, palms open. "You've got no cause for that." "None. Cause is whatever we say it is." The taller soldier reached for Marcus's arm. Marcus pulled back, not violently, just enough to assert space. The world seemed to slow. The watching crowd murmured. The air grew tight, suffocating. "Don't resist," the soldier barked. "I'm not resisting," Marcus said. Each word clipped. "I'm standing." The grip landed anyway, fingers clamping his forearm. Marcus's muscles tensed instinctively. The private's smirk faltered as he realized the strength in that arm. "Damn, this guy thinks he's tough." Marcus locked eyes with him, voice like steel. "No, I think I'm tired." The silence cracked when someone in the crowd shouted, "Leave him alone." The taller soldier's face flushed red. "Stay out of this," he snapped, but his grip tightened. Marcus exhaled slowly, like he had countless times in combat zones. He had faced ambushes, firefights, betrayal, but never had he felt this particular brand of humiliation. Not as a soldier, not as a commander, not as a black man in uniform. The bottle of water slipped from his hand, rolling across the asphalt. The street fell silent, waiting for the next move. And Marcus knew the real battle wasn't overseas anymore. It had just begun on Main Street. The grip on Marcus's arm didn't loosen. "Sir, I'm giving you a lawful order to stay put," the taller soldier barked, eyes darting toward the growing circle of onlookers. Marcus met his stare. "And I'm telling you I've complied with every request. You have no grounds to detain me." The second soldier laughed, loud and mocking. "Hear that? Mr. Hootie thinks he's a lawyer now." Phones lifted higher. Someone whispered, "They're hassling him for nothing." Marcus kept his voice even. "You have my ID, you saw my address. That should be the end of it." The lieutenant finally appeared, young, pale-skinned, jaw set like he'd been waiting his whole career for a moment of command. He strode up, chest puffed. "What's the problem here?" he asked. The private straightened, eager. "Sir, we got a suspicious male loitering, non-compliant." Marcus's head turned slowly. Suspicious male, buying water, running. The lieutenant waved him off. "Save it. Hands behind your back." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A woman shouted. "He didn't do anything." Marcus didn't move. "Lieutenant, I've served this country longer than you've worn that uniform. I suggest you check your facts before you escalate." That word, escalate, the lieutenant like a slap. His jaw clenched. "Oh, he's one of those," he sneered. "Thinks he's above the rules. What are you, some kind of weekend warrior?" "I'm a soldier," Marcus said evenly. "And I know abuse of authority when I see it." The second soldier snorted. "Soldier, please. What are you? Supply clerk? Radio guy? You don't talk like infantry." Marcus's lips pressed into a thin line. He chose silence. The lieutenant smirked. "See that? That's guilt." Won't even defend himself. A man, from the sidewalk, called out. "He doesn't need to." "Y'all are out of line. Back it up." The lieutenant snapped at the crowd. "This is guard business." But the phones didn't lower. Marcus finally spoke. "If you're going to humiliate me, do it knowing the world is watching." The lieutenant's face flushed. "Put him on the ground." The private hesitated. "Sir, he hasn't." "That's an order," the lieutenant barked. Marcus squared his shoulders. "You really want to make that mistake?" The taller soldier stepped forward, nervous now. His hands hovered uncertainly near Marcus's arms. The lieutenant mocked. "What's the matter, big guy? Scared?" "He's just another thug in a hoodie." Marcus inhaled sharply through his nose. "Careful with your words." "Oh, he doesn't like thug," the lieutenant taunted. "What about boy? You respond better to that." The crowd erupted gasps, angry shouts. A teenager holding his phone muttered, "Oh my God, he really said that." Marcus stood perfectly still, hands relaxed at his sides. "You have crossed the line. Hands behind your back." The lieutenant barked again. "Now." Marcus didn't move. His voice was steady, but each syllable rang like iron. "I have nothing to hide, but I will not be treated like a criminal for jogging while black." The words landed heavy in the silence that followed. The lieutenant laughed, brittle and forced. "Hear that? He's making it about race now, because it is about race." A woman yelled from the crowd. "Shut up," the lieutenant snapped. Marcus locked eyes with him. "The more you fight the truth, the uglier this gets. For you." The lieutenant stepped close, so close Marcus could feel his breath. "You think you're scaring me with your tough guy act? You're nothing." Marcus didn't blink. "I've bled for a flag you wear like decoration. Don't lecture me on worth." The words cut, sharp and low. The lieutenant's face darkened, his pride wounded in front of his men, in front of the cameras. "Take him down," he spat. The soldiers hesitated, glancing at each other. They weren't sure anymore. Marcus stood still, chest rising and falling, his silence heavier than any resistance. The lieutenant sneered. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue. Thought you said you were a soldier." Finally, Marcus broke his silence. "Not thought, no." His voice dropped, lethal calm. "And you'll regret doubting it." Gasps rolled through the crowd again. The tension was suffocating, electric, ready to ignite. The lieutenant pointed sharply. "Cuff him." The taller soldier reached again, this time with more force. Marcus didn't fight, but he didn't bow his head either. His eyes stayed locked on the lieutenant's, unflinching, proud. To the crowd, to the cameras, it was clear, Marcus Hayes was standing. But everything else, the uniforms, the orders, the insults was what looked weak, and the cracks in authority were beginning to show. The cuffs clinked in the soldier's hands. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," the private muttered, sounding more to himself than to Marcus. Not Marcus lifted his chin. "It only gets harder if you ignore the truth." The lieutenant rolled his eyes. "Enough speeches. Put him on the ground." The private hesitated again. He looked at Marcus's broad shoulders, the calm steel in his eyes, and for a split second, doubt flickered across his face. The lieutenant barked louder. "Do it." With a shove, Marcus was forced backward, stumbling before his knees struck pavement. The crowd gasped, phones capturing every second. "Unbelievable." A man muttered, "They're arresting him for nothing." A child's small voice rang out from the sidewalk. "Mom, why are the soldiers hurting that man?" The mother's lips trembled. "Because he's black, honey." The words cut deeper than the shove. Marcus swallowed, forcing composure. He pressed his palms flat on the ground, steady. He could have resisted. His body was trained, lethal when needed. But resistance would prove them right in their eyes. Instead, he spoke. "You're making a mistake," Marcus said, voice calm but carrying like thunder. The lieutenant crouched near, smirk painted across his face. "The only mistake is you thinking you get to talk." "You think silence makes you strong?" Marcus asked. "No." The lieutenant spat. "The cuffs do." The soldier yanked Marcus's wrists back. Metal bit his skin. His jaw clenched, but he didn't flinch. "You know what happens next, don't you?" the lieutenant whispered. "You'll sit in a cell, and nobody will care. Not one damn person." Marcus met his gaze. "You underestimate this country." The lieutenant scoffed. "No, I don't. I know it better than you. Men like me give orders, men like you follow them." Gasps echoed from the onlookers. The words hung heavy, naked in their prejudice. A teenager shouted, "I'm live streaming this, man. Whole world's watching." The lieutenant snapped his head toward the crowd. "Turn that off, or you're next." But the crowd didn't move. Dozens of cameras stared back, unblinking. Marcus's voice cut through. "Every second you hold me down, you prove my point." The lieutenant's smirk faltered. He stood, waving his men forward. "Get him in the truck." The soldiers hesitated again. One whispered, "Sir, he's not resisting, do it." Marcus rose only when pulled, his back straight, his face composed. The cuffs clinked behind him, his dignity stripped but his eyes burning. Someone in the crowd shouted, "That man's a hero. You can see it in him." Marcus said nothing. His silence was the sharpest blade. The lieutenant tried one last jab. "Still think you're somebody? Huh, you're just another suspect. That's all you'll ever be." Marcus leaned forward, his words quiet, dangerous. "I was somebody before you were born, and I'll be somebody long after you're forgotten." The lieutenant's face flushed. He shoved Marcus hard toward the truck. The metal door slammed. Phones kept recording. And in the silence that followed, the truth was undeniable. The National Guard hadn't captured a criminal. They had exposed themselves. The ride in the back of the truck was silent, except for the rattle of metal and the low murmur of soldiers up front. Marcus sat, cuffed, wrists pressed into cold steel, sweat drying on his skin. He had endured interrogations overseas, but this silence was heavier. This was not the silence of enemies. It was the silence of betrayal. At the guard headquarters, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The lieutenant shoved Marcus forward. "Stand there," he ordered. Marcus complied. Back straight, shoulders squared. The desk sergeant barely looked up. "Charges, suspicious activity, non-compliance." The lieutenant rattled off. The sergeant raised an eyebrow. "That's thin." The lieutenant leaned close. "He gave us trouble. Might be impersonating military personnel." Marcus's jaw flexed. "Impersonating." The sergeant finally looked at him, eyes narrowing. "You got I." Marcus spoke slowly. "You've already seen it." The lieutenant cut in quickly. "Fake. Anybody can make one." The sergeant shrugged. "Prince." Then they pulled Marcus toward the fingerprint scanner. The soldier, pressing his hand down, muttered under his breath, "Figures always think they're special." Marcus's head snapped toward him. "Say that again." The soldier looked startled, then smirked. "Didn't say nothing, man." The scanner beeped. Marcus's fingerprints glowed on the screen. The sergeant tapped keys lazily, clearly uninterested in whether truth emerged. "Empty your pockets," another soldier demanded. Marcus stared. "You've got my wallet, my keys, that's it. Lose the hoodie." Marcus hesitated. "Why?" The soldier's smirk widened. Procedure. Marcus peeled off the sweat-soaked hoodie, standing in his t-shirt. His muscles, scarred from years of combat, rippled in the harsh light. The room went quiet for a beat. One soldier muttered, "Damn, dude really is built like military." The lieutenant snapped, "Shut up. Muscles don't prove nothing." Marcus raised his chin. "Neither does your arrogance." The lieutenant's eyes flared. "Sell, now." They dragged him into a holding room. Bare, concrete, steel bench, stale air. The cuffs clicked free, but the sting of metal lingered on his wrists. Another detainee, a middle-aged black man in work clothes, looked up from the bench. His eyes scanned Marcus, then softened. "They got you too, huh?" Marcus sat, exhaling slowly. "Yeah." The man chuckled bitterly. "Doesn't matter who you are. To them, we're all guilty first." Marcus stared at the wall, words catching in his throat. The man leaned closer. "What did they say you did?" Marcus's lips curled in a humorless smile. "Jogged, bought water. Existed." The man laughed without joy. "Same charge they gave me. Existing." Marcus leaned back, head against the wall. Silence heavy between them. Through the vent, faint voices carried soldiers joking. You see the look on his face. Dude thought he was hot stuff. Bet he tells people he's a general or something. Don't matter. Black guy in a hoodie, always suspicious. Their laughter echoed in Marcus's ears. He closed his eyes. He had commanded raids, rescued hostages, carried brothers through gunfire. Yet here, at home, none of it mattered. His medals couldn't protect him. His sacrifices meant nothing. For the first time in years, Marcus felt the crushing weight of powerlessness. He whispered to himself, barely audible, "This is the war I never trained for." The other detainee looked at him, puzzled, then nodded slowly. "And it's the only war they'll never admit exists." Marcus sat in silence. His dignity was bruised, his pride stripped, but deep within, a storm was forming. They thought they'd broken him, but they had only lit the fuse. The concrete walls pressed in, the buzz of the light above drilling into Marcus's skull. He sat on the bench, elbows on his knees, staring at the scuffed floor. The other detainee had dozed off, but Marcus's mind refused. Rest stop boots clicked down the hall. Voices followed. Videos everywhere now. Twitter, TikTok, you name it. Doesn't matter. People forget in a day. The words seeped through the vent. Marcus's chest tightened. Video so the world had seen. Across town. Alana Hayes gripped her phone so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her friend had sent her a shaky livestream, the one where Marcus was shoved to the ground, cuffed, dragged. She replayed it, heartbreaking, rage boiling. She dialed, her voice shaking but firm. "General Roth, this is Alana Hayes. They have Marcus." There was silence on the other end. Then the general's low growl. "What do you mean they have Marcus?" "They've detained him, accused him of nothing. He's in a cell right now." The general's fury crackled through the phone. "Stay calm. I'll handle this." Back in the holding room, Marcus sat as a guard entered, tossing him a paper cup of water. "Drink up, hoodie man." Marcus ignored him. The guard smirked. "What, too good for tap water?" Marcus finally spoke, his voice cold. "You don't even realize the storm you've unleashed." The guard chuckled. "The only storm here is me locking this door." He left, whistling. Moments later, the phone at the desk rang. The sergeant answered lazily, then froze. His eyes widened. He straightened his posture instinctively. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." The lieutenant strolled over. "Who was that?" The sergeant swallowed hard. "Delta Force Command called. Said, we've got one of their own." The lieutenant laughed incredulously. "What, that clown? No way." The sergeant's voice dropped. "General Roth himself." The laughter died. The lieutenant's smirk faltered. "Could be a prank." The sergeant glared. Nobody pranks with a direct Pentagon line. Meanwhile, Alana was already on her second call, this time to a journalist friend. Her voice cracked with urgency. "You've seen the video, right? That's Marcus, my husband, Delta Force commander. They're holding him like a criminal." The reporter hesitated. "Why do you mean the Marcus Hayes, Fallujah Kunair province?" "Yes, and they're treating him like a thug off the street. You need to run this." The reporter's tone sharpened. "Send me the details. This changes everything." Back in the cell, Marcus heard muffled arguing. The lieutenant stormed in, eyes blazing. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. Marcus stayed seated. "You ignored my ID. You mocked my name. Now you want to know who I am." The lieutenant slammed a fist against the bars. "Answer me." Marcus rose slowly, towering even in the cramped space. His voice was calm, razor sharp. "I'm Commander Marcus Hayes, United States Army Delta Force. And when this door opens, the only one answering questions will be you." The lieutenant's face drained of color. Behind him, the sergeant's phone rang again. He answered, then turned pale. It's Washington. They want him released immediately. The lieutenant's lips parted. Disbelief etched on his face. Marcus stepped closer to the bars. I warned you. The lieutenant sputtered. This doesn't change anything. You were still suspicious. Marcus's eyes burned. The only suspicious thing here is how quickly your power turns to fear when the truth shows up. In the corner of his cell, the other detainee stirred awake, staring wide-eyed at Marcus. You weren't lying. Marcus's gaze softened briefly. Didn't need to. The truth always surfaces. The man shook his head in awe. Then maybe we all got a chance. Marcus looked down at his raw wrists, then back to the barred door. No, we have a fight. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, not for Marcus, but for the storm now brewing in the streets. Protesters had gathered at Guard HQ, holding up signs, chanting on phones, across networks. His name spread like wildfire. Commander Marcus Hale, wrongfully detained. The tide was turning. And Marcus, though still caged, felt the shift in the air. The war had come home, but this time, he wasn't alone. The cell door creaked open. On your feet, a guard ordered. Marcus rose without a word, towering, controlled. His wrists were still raw, but his presence was unbroken. They escorted him down sterile hallways, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, until they reached a closed office door. The lieutenant pushed him inside. Behind a polished oak desk sat Colonel Frederick Danvers, broad shoulders, iron gray hair, uniform crisp. His eyes swept Marcus with disdain, as if appraising an intruder rather than a soldier. The colonel leaned back in his chair. So, you're the man causing all this noise. Marcus didn't sit. Noise has a way of growing when truth gets buried. The colonel smirked. The truth is simple. You were suspicious. My men did their job. Marcus's jaw tightened. Their job is to protect the people, not harass them. Watch your tone, Danvers snapped. You're in no position to lecture me. Marcus's voice dropped. Steady. I've commanded men in combat across 3 continents. I've seen real threats. And you dared to call me suspicious for jogging home. The colonel's eyes narrowed. Anyone can claim to be a commander. The question is, are you? Marcus pulled a deep breath, then spoke like a blade cutting air. Operation Red Dagger, Kandahar, Convoy Ambush, 2012. I pulled 17 soldiers out, 6 alive. One of them was a lieutenant named Jameson. Ring a bell. Danvers shifted in his chair. Classified nonsense. Anyone could make that up. Marcus stepped closer, eyes burning. Nobody makes up the name of a man who died in your arms. The colonel's smirk faltered. You think I don't know what arrogance does to men? Marcus pressed. I've buried enough of them. Men who thought their rank made them gods. Men like you. Danvers shot up from his chair, voice raised. Enough. You don't get to stand in my office and insult me. I'm not insulting you, Marcus said, calm, unwavering. I'm holding up a mirror. You don't like what you see. The colonel's fist slammed on the desk. You will respect this uniform. Marcus leaned forward, voice cold. I am this uniform. Every scar on my body is the price I paid for it. What price have you paid, Colonel? The room crackled with silence. Danvers's face flushed. He paced behind his desk, trying to regain control. You're nothing but a troublemaker. You provoked my men. You disobeyed lawful orders. Lawful? Marcus asked. Lawful is checking ID. Lawful is DS. What they did was cowardice wrapped in authority. The colonel's voice dripped with venom. You think a viral video makes you untouchable. This will blow over. They always do. Marcus's eyes sharpened. This isn't about a video. It's about every man who's been silenced because people like you thought power meant immunity. Danvers froze. For a split second, doubt flickered across his face. But pride snapped it back into place. You overestimate yourself, Commander, he sneered. One man doesn't change the system. Marcus's voice grew quiet, almost a whisper, but each word hit like a hammer. One man doesn't, but one moment can. The colonel scoffed, forcing a laugh. What, you think this circus outside scares me? Marcus didn't smile. No, what should scare you is that your men followed your orders, and now the whole world knows what those orders were. Danvers stiffened. The words cut through his armor. Marcus stepped back, posture unshaken. I've faced enemies who wanted me dead, but none of them ever disrespected me like this country just did. That shame belongs to you. The colonel's hands trembled against the desk. Though he tried to hide it, his voice, brittle, broke the silence. Get him out of here. The lieutenant stepped forward nervously, but Marcus's final words lingered, like smoke in the air. You can lock me in a cell, you can smear my name, but you cannot outrun the truth, and the truth is already louder than you. The guards led him away, but the damage was done. Behind the desk, Colonel Danvers stared at the door long after Marcus had gone, the weight of exposure pressing down like a storm. Outside, the chants of protesters grew louder, echoing through the compound. The walls of power were cracking. The air inside the holding facility vibrated with noise. What had started as a handful of voices outside was now a thunderous chorus, rolling like waves against concrete walls. Justice for Marcus, justice for Marcus. From his cell, Marcus sat still, his back against the wall. The middle-aged man beside him whispered, voice tinged with awe, "They're out there for you, brother." Marcus didn't answer. His silence wasn't weakness. It was the stillness before impact. The door clanged open. 2 guardsmen entered, looking uneasy. "On your feet," one muttered. Marcus stood tall. They led him down the hall again. But this time the atmosphere had changed. Soldiers at their posts shifted uncomfortably, some whispering, some staring at the floor. When they entered the briefing room, Marcus saw why. 2 men in suits stood at the far end of the table, federal investigators. Their badges gleamed under the fluorescent light. The colonel sat stiff in his chair, jaw clenched, while the lieutenant hovered behind him, pale and sweating. The taller agent spoke first. "Commander Marcus Hale." Marcus nodded. "I'm Special Agent Rivera, DOJ. This is Agent Thomas. We're here to clarify the circumstances of your detention." Marcus's eyes flicked to the colonel, then back. "Circumstances? Is that what we're calling unlawful arrest now?" The colonel slammed his hand on the table. "This is my facility. These are my men. You don't waltz in here." And Agent Rivera cut him off. Calm but sharp. "Colonel Danvers, your men detained a decorated Delta Force commander without cause, and now half the country is watching it unfold online." The lieutenant's throat bobbed as he swallowed. The colonel sneered. "So what? Some protesters with cameras think they know how to run a security detail." Marcus finally spoke, his voice steady. "They know what they saw, and what they saw was cowardice, arrogance, and abuse of power. Uniform or not, that's the truth." The colonel's face turned crimson. "Watch yourself, hey." Agent Thomas leaned forward. "Actually, Colonel, you're the one who should watch yourself. We've reviewed the footage. The only thing Marcus Hale was guilty of was trying to buy water after a run." A silence fell heavy. The soldiers by the door shifted uneasily. Rivera pulled out a folder, laying it flat on the table. Commander Hale's record. Multiple tours, medals of valor, leadership commendations. His file makes most of us look like rookies. He slid it toward the colonel. Danvers didn't touch it. Marcus folded his arms. "Funny thing about records, they don't mean much if men like him decide they don't count." The agents exchanged glances. Rivera's tone softened. "Marcus, we're here to make sure the record does count. That's why we've been sent." The colonel snapped, desperate now. "This is a witch hunt. My men acted on instinct. They saw a threat." Marcus's voice grew sharp, echoing like a blade striking steel. "The threat wasn't me. It was the color of my skin." The room froze. Even the guards by the door looked away. Agent Thomas spoke, measured. "That's exactly why this can't be buried. The governor's office is demanding answers. The Pentagon has been notified. You can either cooperate, Colonel, or watch this spiral." Danvers's hands trembled on the armrests of his chair, but he forced a scoff. "This will blow over." Rivera leaned forward, eyes like stone. "Not this time." From outside, the chants grew louder, shaking the windows. Cameras flashed through the gates. The lieutenant whispered, "Sir, it's already gone national. CNN, Reuters, everyone." Danvers turned on him, spitting venom. "Shut your mouth." Marcus stared at the colonel, then spoke with calm finality. "The walls are cracking. Danvers, you can feel it. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about every man you ever dismissed, every voice you ever silenced. And now they're all outside, chanting in unison." The colonel tried to speak, but his throat caught. His authority, once untouchable, hung in tatters. Agent Rivera stood. "Commander Hale, you're free to go. We'll escort you personally." Marcus nodded once. Not with gratitude, but with the quiet dignity of a man reclaiming what was his all along. As he walked out, soldiers stepped aside. Some avoided his gaze, ashamed. Others looked at him with something closer to respect. When Marcus emerged into the open air, The roar of the crowd hit him like a storm. Protesters held signs. Cameras flashed. Chants shook the ground. Justice for Marcus. Justice for Marcus. The other detainee had been released too, carried forward by the crowd. He caught Marcus's eye, raising a fist in solidarity. For the first time that night, Marcus allowed himself the faintest smile. He raised his head, letting the chants wash over him. Truth had cracked the walls, but the battle wasn't over. Not yet. The car door closed with a heavy thud. For the first time in hours, Marcus was away from the noise, the chants, the flashing cameras. The federal agents sat in the front seat, their radio crackling with updates, but Marcus barely heard it. The world outside was still screaming, yet inside the vehicle, silence pressed against him like iron. Agent Rivera glanced in the mirror. "You all right back there, Commander?" Marcus didn't answer right away. His gaze was fixed out the window, the glow of streetlights streaking across his face. Finally, he muttered, "I've been shot at, bombed, hunted. Never felt this tired." Rivera nodded quietly. He didn't push. The car pulled into a discreet safe house on the outskirts of town. Inside, the hum of the fridge was the loudest sound. Marcus sat at the table, hands folded, the silence so heavy it almost rang in his ears. The agents left him alone. They knew he needed it. Marcus stared at the scars on his forearms, teeny white lines, burns, fragments of shrapnel, proof of battles survived, proof of sacrifice, proof that should have mattered. But tonight, those scars had meant nothing. His thoughts spiraled. They didn't see the commander. They didn't see the soldier. They saw a black man in a hoodie, suspicious, replaceable, disposable. His chest tightened. The silence in the safe house wasn't peace. It was a weight, a suffocating reminder that no matter what he'd endured overseas, the battlefield at home was crueler, more insidious. The door creaked. The middle-aged man from the cell now free stepped inside, escorted by one of the agents. He looked around, then at Marcus. "They said I could stop here before heading home. Hope you don't mind." Marcus motioned to the chair across from him. "Sit." The man sat heavily, rubbing his wrists. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, the man broke the silence. "Name's Leonard." Marcus nodded. Leonard chuckled bitterly. "Strange night. I went in, a nobody. Came out, standing next to you. People chanting our names." Marcus's eyes flicked to him. "They chanted mine. Yours will fade." Leonard shook his head. "No, brother, it's the same chant. Yours just got the camera." The words cut through Marcus's quiet. Leonard leaned forward. "You think being Delta Force makes this weight lighter? It makes it heavier, 'cause now, every black man who watched you dragged in cuffs knows the uniform don't protect him either." Marcus lowered his gaze. Silence again. Leonard's voice softened. "You didn't ask for it, but you're carrying it now. Not just your dignity. Ours too." The words hung heavy. Marcus exhaled slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You ever feel like silence is louder than noise?" Leonard nodded. "Every day." The agents returned briefly, updating Marcus that the Pentagon was reviewing protocols, and that Colonel Danvers was under investigation. Empty words, bureaucratic phrases. When they left, Marcus looked at Leonard. "You believe them?" Leonard's laugh was short and harsh. "I believe in storms. I believe in cracks. And I believe men like Danvers fall hard when truth gets loud enough. But justice don't come from their papers. It comes from us refusing to stay quiet." Marcus stared at him, the weight of those words settling deep. Hours later, when the safe house was quiet again and Leonard had left, Marcus lay on the couch, eyes fixed on the ceiling. He replayed every moment, the cuffs, the taunts, the laughter through the vents, the colonel's face cracking under pressure. He thought of his soldiers, overseasmen of every color, every background fighting side by side, and he thought of tonight, when his own countrymen turned him into an enemy. The silence pressed harder, but this time, Marcus didn't let it crush him. He let it mold him, because silence could be suffocating, but it could also be a weapon. He whispered into the empty room. Words only for himself. "They thought tonight was about breaking me, but it was about revealing them, and I won't stay silent." His voice, low and steady, filled the silence. For the first time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt like the beginning of something else, something inevitable. The morning sun burned across the compound like a spotlight. News vans crowded the gates. Soldiers shuffled nervously, avoiding the cameras pointed their way. Inside, Colonel Danvers sat at his desk, the polished oak now littered with papers, and unopened memos. His hands trembled as he tried to sip his coffee. The bitter taste did nothing to wash away the bile rising in his throat. The phone on his desk buzzed again and again. "Turn off that damn thing," he barked at the lieutenant. The young officer obeyed, but his voice was timid. "Sir, it's the Pentagon. They've been calling all morning." Danvers slammed his fist on the desk. "I know who it is." He stood abruptly, pacing the length of his office. Outside the window, chants carried over from beyond the gates. "Justice for Marcus! Justice for Marcus!" The lieutenant shifted nervously. "Sir, maybe if you silence," Danvers snapped. His voice cracked in a way it never had before. The door burst open without a knock. Agents Rivera and Thomas stepped inside, followed by two uniformed generals. Danvers straightened, trying to reclaim his authority. "You don't storm into my office without clearance." One general cut him off cold. "Frederick Danvers, by order of the Department of Defense. You are relieved of command effective immediately." The words hit harder than any bullet. Danvers's face went pale. "Relieved? For what?" "For keeping this country safe. For doing my job." Agent Rivera laid a folder on his desk. Inside were photographs, reports, video stills. "The evidence, not your job," Rivera said evenly. "Your abuse of it." Danvers's eyes darted across the images. His men, laughing as Marcus was cuffed. His face twisted with arrogance during the confrontation. Transcripts of racial slurs whispered through vents. The walls were closing in. He lashed out desperately. "This is nonsense. One viral video doesn't erase decades of service." The general's gaze was cold steel. "It's not just one video. It's a pattern. Complaints from locals, reports from within your own ranks. You've run this place like a fiefdom, not a command." The lieutenant, pale and shaking, finally spoke. "Sir, they're right. We've covered for you before. Too many times." Danvers turned on him, eyes wide with betrayal. "You spineless coward." Rivera's tone sharpened. "The coward is the man who hides behind rank to abuse power." The colonel's voice cracked. "You can't do this to me. I built this unit. I gave everything." Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. "No, you took everything." Every head turned. Marcus stepped into the office, escorted by Agent Thomas. His presence was calm, towering, unshaken. Danvers staggered back. You don't belong here." Marcus's eyes burned. "Neither do you." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus walked forward slowly, his voice deliberate. "Last night, you tried to strip me of my dignity. You tried to make me small, but all you did was show the world how small you are." Danvers shook his head violently. "No, I was protecting order, discipline. You disrespected my men." "Your men," Marcus snapped. "The men who laughed while they cuffed an innocent man. The men you taught to fear the color of skin more than the truth. That's not discipline. That's rot." The generals said nothing. They let Marcus's words hang in the air like judgment. Danvers's hands shook. He reached for his desk, searching for something, anything to anchor him. But all he found were the files of his own undoing. Marcus leaned in close enough for only Danvers to hear. "I've seen tyrants fall in deserts and jungles. They all sound the same when the walls crack, like you sound now." Danvers's face crumpled. He tried to shout, but no words came. The general finally spoke, voice cold and final. "Colonel Frederick Danvers, you are under investigation for abuse of authority, unlawful detention, and conduct unbecoming of an officer. Hand over your weapon and your badge." Danvers froze. Now, with trembling hands, he unclipped his sidearm, placing it on the desk. The metallic sound echoed like a gavel striking. He removed his insignia next, fingers lingering, as if reluctant to surrender the last pieces of his power. When it was done, he stood hollow, stripped bare. Rivera turned to Marcus. "Commander Hale, you're free to go, but if you'd like to file a formal complaint." Marcus shook his head. His voice was quiet but sharp. "The complaint's already been filed. Out there." He gestured to the window, where the chants still roared. He stepped closer to Danvers one last time. "You thought silence would protect you, but silence broke you. And now, the noise will bury you." Danvers's eyes brimmed with something Marcus had never seen in him before: fear. The agents led the disgraced colonel away. The lieutenant followed, eyes downcast. Marcus stood in the office, the weight of it all pressing down. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply breathed, steady and controlled. Outside, the chants grew louder, vibrating through the walls. "Justice for Marcus. Justice for Marcus." For the first time, those words didn't feel like a burden. They felt like a promise. The colonel had fallen, But Marcus knew the fight was bigger than one man, and it was far from over. The courthouse steps were flooded with people, protesters, reporters, families clutching signs, veterans in uniform, every voice forming a single, thunderous demand. Justice for Marcus. Justice for Marcus. Camera lenses glinted in the morning sun. Microphones crowded the podium set up at the top of the stairs. The space wasn't built for one man, it was built for a movement. Marcus stood just behind the podium, flanked by Agents Rivera and Thomas. Leonard, the man he'd met in the cell, stood nearby with his family, his eyes shining with pride. That a journalist called out, "Commander Hale, will you speak today?" Rivera leaned in quietly. "You don't have to. You've already been vindicated." Marcus's gaze swept over the crowd, their voices, their faces. That wasn't vindication, it was expectation. He stepped forward. The crowd erupted. Cheers, chants, applause. Marcus raised a hand, and slowly the noise dimmed until silence stretched wide across the square. When he spoke, his voice carried not just to those in front of him, but to every lens, every microphone, every home watching. "Last night, I was detained by men sworn to protect this country, not because I broke a law, not because I posed a threat, but because of the color of my skin." A ripple ran through the crowd. Marcus continued, steady and sharp. "I've served this nation my whole life. I've bled for it. I've buried brothers for it. I've carried scars for it. But none of that mattered in the eyes of men who looked at me and saw only suspicion." His jaw tightened. "That is the disease we are fighting. Not foreign enemies, not distant wars, but the rot that says black skin is guilt before innocence." The crowd roared in agreement, chants rising before falling silent again as he raised his hand once more. Marcus's tone shifted, intimate, as though speaking to each person alone. "In the cell last night, I met a man named Leonard. He was there for the same crime I was existing while black. He told me something I won't forget. He said, 'Justice doesn't come from their papers. It comes from us refusing to stay quiet.'" Leonard's eyes welled with tears as the crowd turned toward him, cheering his name. Marcus's voice hardened, echoing like a verdict. "So I won't stay quiet. Not now, not ever." Applause thundered. "And neither should you." The chants resumed, louder, sharper, unified. Behind the cameras, networks broadcasted live. Across the country, families watched, some in anger, some in shame, some in awakening. The story had already broken beyond one man. Marcus's gaze turned toward the courthouse, where Colonel Danvers was being led inside under investigation. His once pristine uniform looked heavy, almost mocking, now stripped of meaning. Marcus's voice grew solemn. "Poetic justice isn't about revenge. It's about truth catching up to arrogance. And last night, truth caught up." Danvers froze for a moment, meeting Marcus's eyes from a distance. His face was pale, hollow, nothing like the man who once barked orders with arrogance. The crowd booed as Danvers was escorted inside. But Marcus raised his hand again. "Don't waste your voices on him. Save them for each other. Save them for the next man who needs to be heard." The boos shifted back into chants of solidarity. Stronger than before, Marcus stepped away from the podium. Cameras still followed, but his shoulders felt lighter, not because the war was over, but because he had refused silence. Leonard approached, clapping a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You gave them words, brother. That's more powerful than any rank." Marcus nodded. "Words are the only weapons that don't run out of ammo." As they descended the steps together, a young boy broke through the crowd and ran up to Marcus. He was no older than 10, eyes wide, clutching a small American flag. "Sir," the boy said breathlessly, "my dad told me you're a hero. Are you?" Marcus crouched to meet his eyes. The camera zoomed in. The crowd hushed. "I'm just a man who refused to stay silent," Marcus said softly. "And so can you." The boy grinned, raising the flag high. The crowd erupted once more, chants rolling like thunder into the sky. Marcus straightened, the noise surrounding him like armor. This was poetic justice, not the fall of one man, but the rise of many voices. The system had cracked, the silence had shattered, and though the road ahead was long, Marcus knew one truth with absolute certainty. They would not be silent again.